To argue why Mavis is the most well-written and interesting protagonist of Fairy Tail, we first have to identify who the actual protagonists are. Admittedly, there's some contention on whether it's Natsu or Lucy. I'll go over this briefly, but my stance is that they're joint protagonists of the story. Lucy does largely serve as a lens through which we perceive the guild's adventures, which has resulted in some fans establishing her as a narrator. I tend to agree. Lucy's role is definitely centered around her experiences with Fairy Tail, relaying that back to the audience time and time again. But I found that her struggles and personal growth are consistently intertwined with most arcs to the extent that we follow her like any battle shonen protagonist. Of particular note was the incredibly difficult decision that she had to make in the Tartarus arc. In a bid to change the tide of war with the Dark Guild Tartarus, she sacrifices Aquarius' key to summon the Celestial Spirit King. He delivers a devastating blow to Plutogrim, awakening the comatose Fairy Tail members and unsettling the remaining Tartarus members. These types of critical moments in an arc's plotline occur frequently, with Lucy's decisions guiding the result. So in that respect, Lucy and Natsu form a duo that represents the core of this guild's themes and emotions. Mavis' character also embodies the basic essence of Fairy Tail, and rightly so. Zero is all about the establishment of the guild's foundational members, principles, ties to the past, and location. What separates Mavis from Natsu and Lucy is how she combines the best aspects of their characters. Lucy is generally characterized as the more intelligent, slightly clumsy support. She tries to become stronger to help protect her friends, but doesn't always rely on furious impulses to do so. Natsu is a little different. He's built up as a hard-headed, infinitely curious and pure-spirited boy that falls nicely into the typical battle shonen mold. Hiro Mashima is quick to point out his psychological weaknesses, but doesn't dwell on them. In the moments we do see him at the mercy of someone else's power, Natsu sidesteps the lessons normally imbued on most characters. There are no consequences, while Lucy is much the opposite. Mavis is extremely intelligent, resulting from her natural talent and boundless curiosity, which compelled her to read hundreds of books from the Tenrojima library. She didn't have much real-world experience, thanks to being stuck on a desolate island, but she learns quickly. I think the best example of this is from one of my favourite scenes in the arc. Upon arriving at Tenrojima in search of treasure, Yuri stumbles upon Mavis in the library. At first, he attempts to skirt around his, Warred, and Precha's true reason for sailing to the island. He proposes a game, which involved guessing a fact about the other person in turns. If the guesser got the fact incorrect, then they lost. If the opponent lied about whether the fact was incorrect or correct, they also lost. If the fact applied to them both, then the guesser lost. Mavis took advantage of these loose rules, proposing that Yuri had blinked 57 times since the game began. He couldn't possibly know the answer to that, and Mavis assured him that she hadn't even blinked once throughout the entire match. It was an impossible situation, where Yuri could only lie, and thus he lost. It was a devious move by Mavis, but perfectly demonstrates her forward-thinking abilities. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. This is probably my favourite scene in the entire series, because it subverts your expectations about this cute girl and makes you believe that she does eventually attain the fairy tactician epithet. Looking at her ability to learn from defeat, when her illusionary base magic is dispelled by Blue Skull's master, her party is completely outgunned and barely escapes to safety. Afterwards, Mavis adamantly wants to become stronger, similar to Natsu's experience with guild arts on Tenrojima. However, instead of throwing that lesson out the window in favour of going guns blazing with the exact same tactic, Mavis deliberates over her opponent with careful thought. With the help of Zeref and her friends, she learns how to create stronger illusions that help confuse and trap Blue Skull's master. But also, she learns that mirror illusions will not solve all her problems in the future, opting to be taught dark magic, like the spell called Law. It's this willingness to go to the extremes and her heavy reliance on strategy and teamwork that's so reminiscent of both Natsu and Lucy's best fighting qualities. Moving past characteristics that are tied to her personality, we find that even her relationships with characters like Zeref are infinitely more profound than Natsu's. Though I will acknowledge that this does come down partly to the execution. Zero was an arc written with complete knowledge of current day events in the story. Now before I go into major manga spoilers, I'll talk about their short-lived encounter in the Zero arc. Upon finding Zeref in a wilted forest, she identifies his affliction as the Curse of Contradiction. Zeref is stunned by this quick revelation, prompting him to shy away from this overly curious girl. Yet Mavis shows how misguided Zeref is about the impact of his presence on others. This scene forms the foundation of their sweet relationship. And with some encouragement, he decides to teach Mavis and her comrades the basics of magic, essentially founding Fairy Tail. I'll keep this next bit light on details, because I know there's a new anime season coming out, and that can make anime onlys a little too eager to find out what's next. So in the manga, we discover that Zeref met Mavis once again. Only this time we find out that Mavis has suffered from the same Curse of Contradiction, which provided immortal suffering, choosing to isolate and starve herself to death. It's heartbreaking and ironic, because it was due to her use of the law magic that spurred the black magic curse to take hold. They shared the same tragedy, and in that Zeref felt comfort and eventually love for Mavis. He felt that this was a person who could actually stand beside him. Upon sharing a kiss, seemingly her life force drained, and Zeref presumed her dead. It's a little more complicated, but we'll leave it at that. On the other hand, Natsu and Zeref's plotline of long-lost brothers feels hackneyed in because key figures like their parents are only introduced in the final arc. Though I must admit I felt compassion for Zeref, who became an infamous Dark Knight figure in an effort to revive his dead brother. But Natsu's understanding of these events should have come much earlier. Everything about this explanation didn't feel natural and reeked of last-minute planning, because it was slotted in like a typical shonen villain flashback. The only thing I enjoyed about this connection was the way it characterized Zeref in a very human light, because I care about his character deeply. Contrary to popular opinion, I kind of think Zeref is a really good villain, and really atypical of battle shonens, but I might save that for a later video. Now I should mention before I wrap up this video that Mavis is not without flaws. I really hate the Mary Sue label that some people attribute to her character. It flat out doesn't fit. If anything, her character is a Mary Sue constantly brought back down to a human level. She grows up without friends or family, deluding herself into believing Zero was still alive after Blue Skull's invasion. Then she forms strong friendships and builds the Fairy Tail Guild, only to abandon it because she was cursed for helping Yuri. She pretty much exemplifies the saying, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And I can't help but love how she continues to smile in the face of this adversity. She is very much Fairy Tail in the best of ways. That's why she's my favourite protagonist of Fairy Tail. Please subscribe for more content every 2 to 3 weeks. Also follow my Twitter if you'd like to stay tuned with updates on my videos.